I'm just looking to see if my battery's gonna die, which was a little bit less than half. That's a lie. Sorry. Blanked for a second there. Hi everyone, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is just going to be a little bit of like a statistical breakdown of my reading that I did in 2019. I was putting together my year-end kind of goals wrap up, looking forward to 2020, and as part of that process I obviously was going through all the books that I was reading, and as I was compiling sort of my favorite books of the year and my not so favorite books of the year list, I really started to like track everything that I was doing, and I thought, well, for those of you out there who are like me and like to get some statistics and review goals and kind of get into the nitty-gritty part of it, I thought I would put together just a quick video that does all of that stuff for my reading for 2019. At the time I'm filming this, with a few days to go in 2019, I am at 99 books. I am 75 pages into, shocker, a mystery, and I'm going to finish it before the year is out. It's like a 300-page book. It's gonna happen. But for the sake of the stats and all the things I'm gonna talk about here, we're focusing on the 99 that I actually did read. One of the big goals I had in 2019 was to consciously read outside of the thriller genre. And thrillers are my heart and soul. It is my go-to. It is everything that I love in all the land. And if you guys have followed me for more than one video, you have seen the trend of thrillers when it comes to what I read and what I'm writing. So I did make a conscious effort to get outside of the thriller genre. 54 thrillers I read this year, so a little bit more than half of what I read, but for those interested in the statistical land, I read 22 contemporaries, non-thriller, 4 YAs, 13 nonfiction, and then I have 7 that I sort of bucketed into sci-fi, fantasy, horror, dystopian bubble. I definitely achieved that goal, which makes me really excited. And not everything was a hit, because not everything can be, but part of the beauty of consciously reading outside of thrillers and consciously picking up books outside of thrillers is I met Frederick Bachman, I met Taylor Jenkins Reid, I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I was super familiar with who she was as a writer, but had not read any of her books, and Vengeful is going to happen in 2020. I discovered Rules of Vanishing, which is a horror YA crazy ride that blew my mind. I read a whole bunch of nonfiction, so I did read a couple writing books. I read Stephen King's On Writing. I read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I finally listened to Becoming by Michelle Obama, because after an eon on the waiting list, it was my time. Such a good book. I read another Rachel Hollis book. You guys know I loved Girl Wash Your Face. I listened to Girl Stop Apologizing / read it this year, which I absolutely loved. I loved Christy Coulter's Nothing Good Can Come From This. So I definitely opened my mind, opened my laser focus, pushed aside my preconceived notions, judgments, snark, all of that stuff, and let myself experiment a little bit. And in many cases, was wholly surprised and found some great things. In other cases, they were just fine. And in a handful of cases, they didn't work for me. But all in, totally knocked that out of the ballpark in the sense of a goal setting where I didn't just read thrillers, which makes me super excited. I did the PopSugar challenge, and this is the first year I have done it. I honestly didn't even know it existed until 2019. Just like all these things where it's like, I've always been a hardcore reader in my life, but like was so oblivious to things that existed in the world, like BookTube and other things. So 2019 and 2018 were very eye-opening for me. So there's 50 challenges. There's sort of 40 challenges, and then there's 10 that they call advanced. So I didn't go into it with the sense of like, I'm only gonna pick up books that fit these challenges, but really read what I wanted to read, mood read a ton, as you guys know, and if those books fit a challenge, that was great. But I wasn't going to pick up a book just for the sake of picking up a book just to fill a challenge. But I understand part of the idea behind the PopSugar reading challenge is to get you to explore books that you wouldn't normally read, and to encourage you to pick up more diverse books, maybe from your normal reading preferences and those types of things. So I might take a different approach to it in 2020, not in the sense that I'm going to read stuff just to fill a challenge. Like, I'm not going to pick up a book I'm not interested in or that has nothing about it that's appealing to me just to say I completed a challenge. So anyway, I completed 34 of the 50 challenges, and 3 of them were the advanced ones. So that made me feel really good. It was fun to sort of finish a book and then go to the challenge page and see if the book applied to anything. The hitch obviously is you can't use the same book twice. So I probably, if I was like really playing the game, like I probably could have moved a book from one challenge to another, and then another book I read could have fulfilled a different challenge, but I just sort of put it where it belonged at the beginning, and I didn't make any changes along the way. A few of the books that I didn't accomplish is like a book with 1 million ratings on Goodreads, which is way harder than I realized. Like, I am someone who writes a Goodreads review for every book that I write, and I'm amazed that a lot of books don't have more ratings and reviews than they do. So I would have thought some of the books that I picked up maybe would have 1 million, but apparently that is insanely hard to achieve. I didn't do a book set in Scandinavia. I didn't do a book set in space. I didn't do a book that takes place in a single day. So some of these I probably could have done if I really tried. I enjoyed this. I'm looking forward to doing it again next year because I do love myself a game. I also did the A to Z challenge, where you read a book for every letter of the alphabet, and obviously like A doesn't count and the doesn't count. And I did 23 of them. So the only letters I didn't achieve were Q, which was hard, Y, which is kind of pathetic because I can't believe I didn't have a book that started like with U, because I read the book U the year before, but there's plenty of books that have Y in the challenge, and then Z. So I didn't, again, pick up books just to fulfill challenges with that, but I might work a little harder on getting my Q, Y, and Z in 2020. And for X, it just needed to have the letter X anywhere in the title, so there was a little bit of a saving grace on that one. So Daisy Jones and the Six hooked me up with my X challenge. One of my goals was also to participate in more Readathons as a way to be more active in the BookTube community. And I hit this one pretty strong too. So I did 9 out of 12 months, which made me really excited. I had good reason for not hitting it on a couple of the months, but I did in January, I did Buzzword-a-thon. February, I did Contemporary-a-thon. March, I did Buzzword-a-thon. April was the Booklist Read-A-thon. May was the first month that I didn't participate in a Readathon. Don't ask me why, just didn't. In June, I also did Buzzword-a-thon. You can see which Readathons I am attracted to. In July, I did the Reading Rush, aka Booktube-a-thon. I did Thriller-a-thon in August. I did Contemporary-a-thon in September. I did Spook-a-thon in October. In November, I did National Novel Writing Month. So if you guys, again, have followed me, you know I basically did nothing. I did complete 2 nonfiction books. So technically I participated in nonfiction November. I don't know if that counts as like a readathon, but I did participate in nonfiction November. And then December, I gave myself a free pass to just do whatever I felt like and just let the mood take me wherever it took me. And also, with the holidays and coming off writing and everything else, I just was not in a headspace. I actually had put together some TBRs that I was going to do for Cloak and Dagger Christmas and for Buzzword-a-thon, and I just wound up obviously not doing either. All in, I did 9, I consider, because even with Nonfiction November, I didn't really do anything to participate other than hashtagging a post on Instagram, but I definitely want to make sure that I'm continuing to do readathons next year, partially because as someone who doesn't make a TBR ever because I can't stick to it, it does help me with kind of rediscovering books that are on my shelf already and getting me to pick up some of these books. I also enjoy the community aspect with the different prompts. Again, it feels like a game to me, which I love. So all in, 9 out of 12 months feels like a very strong show of readathoning for someone who's never done it before. Another goal that I had set in 2019 was to reread. I picked 13 books off my shelf, which are books that I have owned, had read all of them. Some of them I read like 15 plus years ago, 20 years ago in some cases. Others, maybe it was like as soon as 5 years ago. I had reread it or something like that. And in all of my moves and all of my unhauls and all of these different sort of times in my life that have involved me getting rid of books, these are books that I refuse to get rid of for some reason or another. And I decided to make it my mission to reread them this year. And out of the 13, I actually wound up reading 7. And I started off like a boss at the beginning of the year. I was reading 1 a month. I was clicking them out. It was great. And then I really kind of got off track once we hit the fall. But I did wind up rereading The Romantics by Galt Niederhofer. Loved it. I've read that a bunch of times. The movie is also great, which I have talked about. I reread The Client by John Grisham. I have not read a John Grisham book in forever. I distinctly remember crying the first time I read it. I cried again this time. I just like sort of re-fell in love with Reggie Love. She's such a great character. He just wrote such a good book. And it was also interesting to see how it was really kind of a slow burn of a thriller. And in my head, I remember it being super fast paced, and sort of towards the end, there's some fast paced tension. But I remember all of, I remember The Firm being insanely fast paced and Pelican Brief. And I feel like if I went back and reread those books too, which I would really like to do, I would find out that they're actually more of a slower burn. But I very much enjoyed The Client. I then watched the movie, which was also fun to see. I reread Who Will Run the Frog Hospital by Lori Moore. This is just a sentimental favorite about sort of this one summer and this girl reflecting back on her best friend. They worked at a camp together and kind of everything they got up to that summer. And our main character is kind of the shy introvert, and her best friend is sort of the bad friend that we all had at some stage in our life that introduced us to, I don't know, she always felt so worldly to me. And I can specifically remember my friend who did this for me when I was in 9th grade. So I just loved it from a sentimental reason. I reread Frenemies by Megan Crane. I 100% remember why I love that book. It's set in Boston. It's a group of friends from college in their kind of mid to late 20s trying to figure out their lives. I 100% related to it when I read it because that's where I was in life. I appreciated it for what it was, but definitely didn't have the same impact this time around, but still on my shelf. I reread Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell, which is the first book in the Kay Scarpetta series, which is another series that I sort of obsessively read and then stopped at some stage. And I 100% re-fell in love with Kay, with Patricia Cornwell, with her writing. This book scared the crap out of me when I was rereading it. I forgot how freaky it was. I forgot how amazing her writing was. And then I read Animal Husbandry by Laura Zigman. So this was her first book, I think, and the first book of hers that I read. It became the movie Someone Like You with Ashley Judd and Hugh Jackman and Greg Kinnear and Ellen Barkin, which came out in the 90s. This is another book that I love. I don't love it the same way I did then, but I definitely think there's things about it I appreciated this time around. And then I wound up rereading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood in preparation to read The Testaments, which I loved. And then I reread On Writing by Stephen King, which is his nonfiction book about writing and a lot about his personal life, but a great sort of mix of him as a writer and his history and what's influenced his career, as well as some huge nuggets of writing advice and great just one-liners and takeaways in all of it. So anyone who's a writer or a Stephen King fan, I have not read an actual Stephen King novel, but I would recommend it to anyone who's a fan of his because there's just so much goodness to that. I did reread a bunch of books, which was good. I do want to continue with that list and get to those and then add to it, and I'll link that video too, of books that I won't unhaul but haven't read yet on my list for 2020. I had made a bunch of videos about anticipated releases for 2019, and I read a decent amount of them, I would say. I should have counted this before we started. So I did 2 sort of big new release videos at the beginning of the year, or no, maybe like the beginning of the year and the middle of the year. But I wound up reading, wait for it, 7 out of 21 of the books on this original list, and I do have a bunch more of them. So all in good time, I will get to things. One that didn't happen, the Paul Hawkins book never came out. It was supposed to come out, I feel like, in the fall, and then I never heard anything about it again, and I actually haven't done any research on it, so I don't know what's going on there. And then I also decided to knock at least one of them off the list. I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney, because I had heard so many bad things about it, which was a bummer because I loved her first book, The Last Time I Lied. Last Time I Lied? Is that what it was called? Isn't that awful? About the woman in a coma. Sometimes I Lie, which I really enjoyed, but I heard some weird things about this one, and then I wound up watching somebody's spoiler video, Lala's spoiler video on it, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to read that book. But I do have a huge list of 2020 releases that I'm excited about, so it's fine. I mean, you don't have to read all new books, but there's still all books by authors that I'm interested in. So I did like so on that. I read 5 ARCs and I DNF'd 1. I kind of like just joined NetGalley maybe back in the spring, I want to say. I have not aggressively pursued ARCs, partially because I don't want to feel like I am asking for books and then not able to get to them. This is also new to me. I was trying not to drown myself in things, but I did discover some great books through the ARCs that I read. I discovered an okay book, and then I did DNF one, which kind of broke my heart because I really wanted to love that book. But I am looking forward to reading some more ARCs next year. I won CJ Tudor's new book, The Other People, from Goodreads. So that comes out end of January. So I am going to read that early in January because I'm excited about it. And also I would like to be able to talk about it before it comes back so people know about that book. And then I did go on NetGalley because there was a book in particular that I was obsessed with that I wanted to get. And I can't even believe I got it because I'm so excited. Jennifer Hillier's new book, Little Secrets, comes out, I think, in April, and I got the ARC of it from NetGalley, which I'm so excited about because you guys know I obsessed about Jennifer Hillier. I read Jar of Hearts this year, which is a book I picked up last year because I met her. I was exposed to her in 2018 at Thriller Fest. I didn't know who she was. I was on a panel. I saw her on a panel. I heard about her book, I bought it, and then I actually read it this year. And then this year I actually met her at Thriller Fest. I talked to her about her book. She signed it for me. She could not be a lovelier woman. She won the best hardcover book for Jar of Hearts this year at Thriller Fest. And I'm so excited to read her new book because I just think she is incredible. So stay tuned for my review on that, which will be coming up when I read the book. I'm so excited. So that really does it for the statistical wrap-up of 2019. And I have to say, all in, it was a great reading year. I'm so happy that I just like got over myself and was open to things and took some leaps of faith and just had a blast with the books that I read this year. And I'm so excited for what's going to happen next year and what I'm going to get into. I need to set up my reading book. I need to set up my journal. I need to finish my book so I can end the year on 100 books because I'm so obsessed with doing that. But excited for what's to come next year. So thank you guys, as always, for watching and hanging out a bit today. Let me know how many books you finished. Let me know how you did with some of your goals. Throw some stats my way. I love that kind of stuff. And we will all chat down below and then see each other next time around. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.